here, Darren over there. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon as we talk the last draft prep show prior to the NFL draft, which will be live on Thursday. And your Minnesota Vikings get to select the next super stud that will lead the Vikings into the future. Let's hope they make the right choice. But first, the three themes we're going over today. We're looking deep dive, Darren's idea, at which players can have breakout seasons. And we're going to start this off with Irv Smith. Yes, we've been saying that for the last 2 years, but maybe this year's the year. Secondly, we're looking at the mad money that's going to wide receivers across the league. We have Deebo Samuel out in San Francisco trying to work his way out so he can earn some of that mad money. What does that mean when it comes to Justin Jefferson? Are we going to extend him early? What's that going to cost? Or are we going to lose him? And finally, we look at the draft. Is the 12th pick purgatory? We'll explain what I mean by that as we get into the show. But until then, enjoy the long roll-in so people have time to gather. And I promise, after draft season, I will shorten it up. Cheers, everybody. Welcome to Two Old Bloggers, where myself, Dave Stefano, and over there, Darren Campbell, are your two old bloggers. We've been doing it for 2 decades. I looked it up. Doesn't that seem like a long time, Darren?
It does, yeah. That's I didn't realize I'd been at this racket for as long as I have, so...
Yep.
Or you, but anyway.
Yeah, we've been commenting on this team for 2 decades. And
publicly, anyway.
Yes. And it sort of colors us a little bit in our views. We've, as I'll explain later, get a little bit of expect the worst, hope for the best. And If you get the best, hey, that's a happy surprise.
It is.
Um, but we'll get into that. And speaking of hoping for the best, we'll get into our first topic of the day: breakout players. You wanted to do this. You wanted to go through a handful of players starting this week that we can expect to break out and accelerate their game to a higher level this season.
Yeah, there's a few players I've got earmarked for this segment and run it through the off season. The and Ted was said Morse code for Ted. I think I was. I know I had the old Atari computer when I started,
Yeah.
and
Well,
a hard drive.
I can blame Ted. He's he's the reason I started, so it's all his fault. Anyways, the first
But breakout players.
Yes. Who's your first one?
Break. My first one is going to be tight end Irv Smith, wearing old 84, Randy Moss's old number. But yeah, I thought it'd be a good person to start off with. There was a lot of, I think I was pretty stoked, and other Vikings fans that I knew of were pretty stoked when Irv Smith was drafted by the Vikings in the second round in 2019. But his first two seasons, his production was kind of pretty muted, and then last year no production because he injured his knee in the preseason and was done for the year. He had surgery on it. So, but I think that Irv Smith is a guy that has to be watched out for. We talked about him in our tight end segment several weeks ago, and there is rightly and amongst Viking fans, I think, some concern about is Irv Smith going to give us what we need from the tight end position, especially because Tyler Conklin is signed with the Jets. He's no longer here as a safety, as a safety valve for the Vikings, and had a very good year last year. Irv Smith is much of an unknown guy, but I think that Smith is a guy that it was tough for him to put up stats in an offense that he was in previously, where Dalvin Cook was the focal point, and they like to run the ball a lot. And he was splitting time with Kyle Rudolph. And so I've actually thought his 2020 season he had encouraging numbers. He only caught 30 passes, but he missed 3 games. And again, he was splitting time with Rudolph in a run-first offense. And despite the 30 catches, which was 6 fewer than his rookie year, his yards per catch went up by 4 yards compared to his rookie year, and he had 5 touchdown passes caught compared to 2 in his rookie year.
On 36 receptions, I think it was 5 touchdown passes. Besides the yak.
And he only got targeted in 2020 43 times. To compare, last year Justin Jefferson was targeted, I believe, 67 times, well over 160. So for Smith to get the yardage and the pass catches he did on only 43 targets, I felt that those numbers were encouraging, and I think that he obviously is not going to be in a timeshare this year. He's going to be the number one tight end and an offense that's being on a team that's got a head coach with an offensive background. And I think that right now he's a bit being lost in the shuffle, as when we talk about how the Vikings are going to get from a 15th, 16th ranked offense to a top 5 unit. I think that Irv Smith can be a big contributor if he takes his game up a few levels, can be a big contributor to helping get our offense in that top 5 spot. Again, opportunity is a big thing. If you look at the Rams under Kevin O'Connell, you look at their tight end Tyler Higbee, their main number 1 guy, in 2 of the last 3 seasons, and he's up there now. Higbee had 69 catches in 2019. O'Connell wasn't there then, but and then last year he had 61 catches, and he was getting roughly targets in the high 80s. you look at Higbee's production, that is the kind of production I think that you can expect and are going to get from Irv Smith this year in the Kevin O'Connell offense. And just look at what, and I like Tyler Conklin. I love the guy. He was a great, solid player for the Vikings, and sad to see him go. But he had 61 catches last year, but his yards per catch were only 9.7. Uh, Irv Smith is a more explosive athlete than Tyler Conklin. I think he can do more in an offense where he's featured more, and if he gets the same amount of targets that Tyler Conklin did last year, which was 87, again, I think his numbers are going to be a little bit better than Conklin's, and
Right.
maybe a
And
lot
we
better.
can extrapolate those not only for yak, but also for touchdowns. And that adds a lot of touchdowns to that, you know, Kirk Cousins, stat line where can he throw over 40 touchdowns? Can he throw 50 touchdowns? If he throws, 50 touchdowns, we're a top five offense. Easy.
And Irv Smith is a guy that his last year, he really only had 2 years at Alabama, and his first year he wasn't the main usage tight end. And his second year, his last year at Alabama, he had I think 51 catches, 700 yards, 7 or 8 touchdown passes. That's what got him drafted in the second round. And again, he's a guy that you can definitely use in a lot of different ways. I think Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips are going to figure out how to use him in a lot of ways. And as long as he's healthy. And if you look at the Vikings offense, defenses are going to be focused on, of course, Justin Jefferson. They're going to be focused on Adam Thielen. They're going to be focused on Dalvin Cook. They're going to be going to have to focus a bit on KJ Osborne. Uh, can they stop those guys and a healthy Irv Smith? I don't think so. And so I really feel that Irv Smith could be like the not the secret weapon, but he could be definitely a guy who again is a big contributor to this offense, stepping things up a bunch of notches. And if folks remember the '98 team, the Vikings team, that great team, and that the three deep thing with Moss, Carter, and Jake Reed. What people might forget is that the Vikings' third leading receiver that year was actually Andrew Glover, the tight end. Andrew that year he had more catches than Jake Reed, more yardage than Jake Reed, and more touchdown passes than Jake Reed. So he was a weapon, not used a terrible amount. He only had 36 catches that year, but I'm just saying, Irv Smith
If used
in
wisely,
offenses are
they're
if used
productive.
wisely,
Mm-hmm.
and even in offenses pass way more now even than they did in 1998. So you've got Irv Smith is a guy who's, if he can be the factor that I think he can be in 2022, this offense could be really cooking with gas, and that's not even taking into account what we're going to talk about later on in the show.
You ain't kidding. It could be. That's where I talk about my pessimism over the decades of watching the Minnesota Vikings and the inevitable fails. The one thing that does get me excited and get me optimistic about this season is the fact that if you look on that offensive side of the ball, there are so many options that Kirk Cousins can throw to beyond the 2 yard check down to CJ Ham that if Kevin O'Connell can unlock his brain, right? We can use Kevin O'Connell's brain and Kirk Cousins' arm. This could be deadly to any team we face, and we could be looking at production we haven't seen since Denny Green. And tell you the
As
truth,
long as
that's what
Kirk
I'm
isn't
hoping
lined up under the right guard.
like I said, Kevin O'Connell's brain, Kirk Cousins' arm, we're golden.
I agree, and Irv Smith could be one of the golden childs of that offense. Again, not expecting him. I don't think he's going to get 80, 90 catches. He's not going to be Travis Kelce direction, but he doesn't have to be. He's a guy that if he's getting 55, 60 catches, 700 yards or so, 9 or 10 touchdown passes. Again, you can't stop all of these guys. Too many weapons. And Irv Smith, a healthy Irv Smith, is a weapon for the Vikings.
I agree
Looking
with you
forward to what he can
100%.
do in this offense.
Hmm. I agree. GMAC, insert hand here. Yes. Uh, Glover. Elway lined up under guard and went to the Hall of Fame. Yes. It took him till later in his career. You got that right, Ted Glover. That gives us hope for us old guys, doesn't it? Moving on to our next theme. Now that we've picked as the first player Irv Smith for a breakout season, we'll have more coming up as the weeks go on. Our next theme is Justin Jefferson and the absolute mad money that's gone around for wide receivers lately.
Yes, it has been a very good couple of weeks if you're an elite wide receiver or a very good wide receiver and you're up for a new contract. We saw Devontae Adams um, get a new deal that averages out about 28 million a year. Also got traded to a new team because of that contract. Then shortly after that, Tyreek Hill gets traded from the Chiefs to the Dolphins. Gets an extension. His contract is averages about 30 million per year right now. And then we got word that AJ Brown, Terry McLaughlin, and Deebo Samuel, all very talented wide receivers heading into their fourth year in the league. They're still under their rookie contracts. That they were all looking for extensions themselves, and that we also heard that Samuel and Brown were not going to be taking part in off-season workouts until they got a deal. And then we also heard that Deebo Samuel says, now I want out of San Francisco. Which brings us to Justin Jefferson, because he is, even though he is going into his third year this year with the Vikings, getting under a rookie contract, getting paid 1.8 million in 2022. That is a colossal bargain for what Justin Jefferson has done his first 2 years in the league, which is 196 catches, over 3,000 yards, receiving yards, and 17 touchdown passes caught.
If
And
I
people are,
remember correctly, somebody said he led the league in total yards for the last 2 years.
yeah, I remember seeing a stat too, and something along the lines that he had the best 2 year run of
Mm-hmm.
first 2 years
Out of any
of
wide receiver.
yeah. And maybe some people are going to get on me for being alarmist, but uh,
Well, that's where the
the,
decades of following, you're writing on this team and then following this team for even longer comes into play.
it's short. Yeah, I guess it does. But looking at it, if I'm looking at, we haven't even started 2022, but I'm already thinking about 2023 when it comes to Justin Jefferson, and what I'm worried about is that I think what you're seeing with Samuel and AJ Brown in 2023, if Justin Jefferson has the kind of year this year that we expect he has, and if he's healthy, uh, the Vikings are going to be faced with the same situation that the 49ers are dealing with right now, and that the Washington and the Titans are dealing right now. They're going to have a very talented, elite young wide receiver going into the fourth year on a massively cheap rookie deal, and he is going to Justin Jefferson, I think, is going to say, I ain't taking part in any activities until you pay me or trade
Show
me.
me the money.
And he's going to be looking for 30 million per year. And again, that's a lot of scratch. Even with the salary cap goes up,
It's
that
still a
kind
lot
of
of
money
scratch. Yeah.
or more would be taking up a significant percentage of the Vikings salary cap.
That's
And
quarterback
you've got
money.
a yeah, that's quarterback money, and you've got a new regime, new GM, and maybe as good as Justin Jefferson is, we don't know what their threshold is for, like, how much is too much to pay any player, no matter how good he is, because it handcuffs you from doing the overall having a good overall team in place.
Well, we
So
could
this
say
this
we
this worries
do
me.
in a way. It's 35 million per
Mm. But it's
Kirk
it's
Cousins.
this yeah, this does worry me. And something to watch out for. Dalvin Cook, after his third year, he made it known he was not going to take part in workouts. He was going to hold out unless he got an extension. He did get an extension. So when people are talking about Justin Jefferson, we only have to worry about an extension after year 4. I think they're wrong. I think that that's going to come to a head after in the next
This year.
offseason.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at all the money being doled out. With
Now,
Jefferson, my view. Go
when
ahead.
you talk holdout, to clarify for the viewers, because the new CBA, they can hold out from all the voluntary workouts they want. That's voluntary, right? They can do that. They cannot hold out from mandatory camps or functions unless they're willing to accept the outrageous $50,000 a day or whatever it is fines that are dictated by the NFL and the CBA that they get charged if they just don't show up. Now, and they must be charged that now. That changed. It used to be, well, we'll forgive that. Now, it's
Mm.
got to be charged. So what they're doing now is they're having hold-ins where they'll come show up to Egan in this case and sit in the locker room the whole time and say I'm not partaking. Um, expect that next season if they don't take care of it. But do you think that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell have looked at this and anticipate that this is going to be the case? That's why they only signed Kirk Cousins to a 1 year extension, which is 2024. 2023. And so that they can figure out that we'll have a new quarterback on a rookie scale. We can now pay Justin Jefferson. They can do the extension next year, but it goes on after year 4, right, or year 5,
Yeah.
and then they go, all right. By the time that money hits, we've got a rookie quarterback making less money, and then thus we're not eating so much of the cap. Does that make sense? Do you think they've
It
thought of
does.
that with their
Well, yeah.
mind in their head, as Drew would say, and back in their
Yeah.
mind with their eyes, all that sort of stuff?
Well, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is too smart, and Kevin O'Connell are too smart to be not looking down the road 1 or 2 or 3 years, right?
I
So,
love you, Drew.
yeah, yeah, they are looking at that, but it's still we have, despite looking at that, crap happens, right? And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that the Packers had any intention of trading Devonte Adams, but stuff happened, right? And you
Yeah,
don't
but
know
they
how
may
the
have thought they
players.
were on to their, drafted quarterback by now. But,
That's
Aaron
true.
Rodgers got in the way.
Same thing with the in KC. I don't think that the Chiefs in their right, had really wanted to trade Tyreek Hill. They ended up getting a pretty sweet deal for him, but again, they obviously made a decision that Mahomes is the guy they're going to pay the big bucks to, and Mahomes can make lesser receivers look pretty good, and that it wasn't worth the scratch
Mm-hmm.
it was going to cost to keep Hill, and then you wouldn't be able to use some of that money to address other situations. But there's never any guarantees in the NFL. You also don't know how a player, and Justin Jefferson seems like a great kid, very level-headed, very team-oriented, but you just never know how they're going to react to the going on about tracked uncertainty and what the team throws at them and what they offer at first and what they don't offer, and you might get a Debo Samuel situation where, yeah, sure, the 49ers don't have to trade Debo Samuel, but a player can make it like Ben Simmons did with my Philadelphia 76ers, the player can make it pretty uncomfortable for the team and almost force them to trade them if they're really willing to take some cash hits and are strong-willed enough to do so. But for a guy like Justin Jefferson, he's elite as he is, a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL at a premium position. I think, as Drew was saying earlier this week, wise Drew, he was saying at the Gallahorn site, is that Justin Jefferson is elite. He's a guy that is worth every penny he's going to get paid. That's different than paying $35 million to a quarterback who is not elite, or a player who is not elite. And you know who we're talking about there.
Yeah. Well, I want to hit up on Jonathan. Posted up. If we stay healthy, we make the conference championship game. Jonathan, that is the only thing that screws all the plans up in the world, is if we make a run for the glory. And if we, make a run, get to the championship game, win the championship game, go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, I'm all for. I'll design the statues, and we can deal with that, bad consequences of how we do this after that fact. But we're not there yet, so we're back to, our normal, this is Vikings for 62 years. Let's see how it goes. Ryan
I feel that
proposes a QB learn behind Kirk. That's not a bad way to go.
We'd like that QB to be one who's already on the roster. His name is Kellen Mond, but we'll see about that.
If he works out. If not, we possibly could get one in the draft. Really?
Possibly.
That brings us to our third theme of the day. But before that, got to give love to our sponsors, Lake Monster Brewing. Yes, home of some of the most fantastic beers in Minnesota. Go on your search for that wonderful, that rare, that 1 in 10,000 finds at Lake Monster Brewing. And not only do they sponsor us and have great beer, we are going live on day 2 of the draft. We'll be live all 3 days, but day 2 of the draft, we're going to be live from the brewery itself. On the 29th, there are all sorts of giveaways. We have UNL, I think it's RNL sweatshirts. All right, I looked at it. If you look back at Viking Hot Takes, both Eric and Flip were wearing them. I've looked online. These things are excellent. They are premier. They are sweet. And they're all sold out, except for we have some that we're giving away. 2, to be exact. We're also giving away a free jersey. Don't know what it is yet, but we are giving away a free jersey. And Lake Monster itself is giving away free beer. What's better than free beer? Vikings football and free beer. You can't beat that with a stick. On the 29th. But you've got to be at the brewery on the 29th. That's day 2, rounds 2 and 3. Which we have picks to enter yourself to win some of that stuff and enjoy. And we'll be taking live audience questions. Where you come up to a microphone and ask, why did we draft Malik Willis in the first round? How did Malik Willis fall to us? Why did we draft Darryl Stingley? Why did we draft Trent McDuffie? All those things can happen live on Tuesday night, and you can be there and make friends, have a great time, eat good food, and most certainly have some of the best beer of your life. And, like I said before, Climbing the Pocket is doing its live draft coverage for all 3 days. We have your favorite Climbing the Pocket personalities lined up, plugged in, including Darren on Saturday. He and I will close out the draft, along with a couple other individuals, come Saturday as we finish everything up, wind it up, and see how well we did. But all 3 days we are live. And I want to give a hat tip to Drew and Ted, because Drew and Ted know that it was the three of us with Good Morning Gallahorn that started all this live broadcast years ago as we did it first. That's right. We are the trendsetters. And now everybody like Score North, Keven, all the rest of them are joining in. But they're just copycats. Come to the original ones here on Climbing the Pocket. And I'll even promote Drew and Ted with Vikings Report and their big adventure over on their channel. I hope to be hopping over during my breaks. But we will be live. We both will cover the draft like you can't get anywhere else. And you're sure not going to get the blah, 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 blah of NFL Network or ESPN. So join us first. And right, Drew, it was GMG. Good Morning Gallahorn, where you see G in the below on the right, that started it all. Now on, since this is our last program prior to the draft is Thursday, we're going to talk about the draft. I have some worries about this draft. I titled the show, Is the 12th Pick Purgatory? Right? I'm not Catholic. I'm Lutheran. I don't believe in purgatory, but I've skied purgatory in Colorado, but that's totally different. Purgatory, where we're stuck, right? That all the players we want, those blue chippers we want, are gone by the time we hit 12. Right? The ones that make sense, Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, the blue chippers, Hamilton, right, at safety. Even Malik Willis, for that matter, that you'd run up and slap that card down, are gone by 12. Right? And then we're trying to fill on positions of need, which we know we need corner. If you'd have watched Vikings Report earlier, you saw Drew hold up the sheet with God, this is our quarterback room. Are we reaching at 12? My fear, my worry, my irrational worry is that we'll get to 12 and want to trade down, and then we'll get the other GMs going, no. Or, we're going to screw you. We don't want to lose a trade to the FNG, Kwesi, Adofo-Mensah, the guy that comes from an analytic background, the first GM ever to come from that background. Hell no. We'll offer you, a couple sevens, but nah, we ain't going anywhere else. And we're stuck at 12. That's my fear. That's my irrational fear. And then do we reach for guys, to fill the need position? And reaching never works out in the long run. It never really has. So we're going to discuss it here. Is that going to happen? Is the 12th pick purgatory for the Minnesota Vikings?
I hear what you're saying, Dave. I don't think so. It's not as good a catbird seed as if you're at 1 or 2 or 3, like you say. Right. But at 12, there's going to be 200 and some players chosen in this draft. You're getting the 12th pick out of the pick of the litter. If you're a good GM, we don't know if Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is. We sure hope he is, but you're going to get a very good player at 12. You just got to pick the right guy, right?
I hope to be happily surprised.
And there was a comment below that players always fall start falling. And so there's
Yes, they do.
almost always good value, maybe not necessarily at the position that you needed, but
Mm-hmm.
there's always good value at 12, 13, 14, whatever, because players drop that you didn't think were going to be there. Uh, One of the interesting parts of this is the whole thing about dropping maybe in value is that um, if you look at the Vikings needs, like cornerback just screams at you, right? Like and a lot of the mocks have us taking a cornerback. The Vikings did address that position in the free agency, but they really got some low cost mid-tier signings: Chandon Sullivan, Patrick Peterson, the Hairston guy from Denver. uh, I don't, it remains to be seen how big of an impact those guys are going to have, how good of players they're going to be, how much they're going to improve our secondary. But even with those signings, there's still concerns about the cornerback position for the Vikings. They still need some more quality players there, and the draft is how they're going to get them. The question is, I think, at 12 is that if your consensus number one and number two corners, Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley, are gone
Mm-hmm.
at 12, and they probably will be, do you, like you said, do you reach for Trent McDuffie at 12, assuming the Vikings stay there, or Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson at 12, who are considered the consensus number 3 or number 4?
Yeah,
The
you
Elam
get
kid
in
from
this
Florida is,
second
yeah,
tier ish.
yeah. The Elam kid
Or
from Florida is another guy that's
or
there.
Kyer Elam. Yeah.
Yeah, but do you pick them there at 12? And the flip side of that is, again, do you pick your third or fourth best corner on your board at that position when you wanted the first one? You pick them just because you need a corner, or what if? And we talked about it last week, what if the top wide receiver in the draft is sitting there at 12 for you? Premium position, like somebody like Garrett Williams, somebody like Drake London, somebody like Chris Olave, all those guys up there. If they are at 12, do you say, to heck with cornerback, we'll address that in the second or third round,
Mm-hmm.
and try to get yourself, is it worth it getting at 12, getting the top or second best wide receiver in that class? And one of those guys is going to be, probably two of them are going to be available at 12 if the Vikings stay there. I feel pretty solid about that. They might not all be, particularly Wilson, but I think a couple of them are going to be. If they're there, do you pick Jameson Williams, another guy
Mm-hmm.
could be a stud? And Phil Mackey brought this up in the tweet that you just got on the screen there about how picking a stud wide receiver, that could turn the Vikings again from that middle of the pack offense to a top
Top
5
five.
unit. Top 5, you go from a team, you turn into a team that outscores everybody, which helps your defense because they've got the ball. Your offense got the ball a lot. They're scoring the points a lot, forcing offenses to turn into pass only mode early in the game. Uh, the more I think about it, the more that really appeals to me. And again, if you've got, like we talked about, the Vikings offense and the weapons they already have: Irv Smith, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. Say you're adding a Jameson Williams or a Dre, London or a Chris
Mm-hmm.
Olave to that spot. Man, you could have an unstoppable 1998 Vikings offense ready to go for you, and really, again, that alleviates some of the concerns you might have at defense. Uh, and again,
It
we've got,
does. How many games do you win if you score at least 40 points?
you should win them all,
You may
or
lose
pretty
one.
close to it.
You may lose
Yes.
one. It's literally that. If you can generate an offensive powerhouse, have that produces 35, 40, occasional 50 burger, you're going to be close to running the table. You are guaranteed to probably win your division, because I don't see Green Bay doing it. I don't care that they've got Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to happen. You're going to run the table. The Vikings have their best chance if Darryl Stingley isn't there, right? If Hamilton isn't there, and if Hamilton was there, I'd run up and slap the card down and choose him because he's a unicorn, right? If he isn't there, I would. This is where I'm getting into selecting these guys, and if you can't, especially if you can't trade back, trading back adds a whole new level to it. But if you can't trade back because old GMs are looking at Kwesi and going, screw you, we're going to make sure you fail, so we're not going to give you anything good. Going this route, to me, it's Olave. I think he runs a lot of things good today. There was a report came out, I didn't read it, that said he has some flaws, but screw that.
Yeah.
They all do.
Somebody's leaking those flaws.
Yes.
So he'll fall to them.
It's, I'm sure, so they can get him to drop. If you look at his route tree and how it graded out for PFF and how that translates to pros, he is very much, I think, ready to step in Justin Jefferson type role. He can be that good. And that increases the production. And as we talked about earlier, if you have a 3 deep, just like before, and then Irv Smith playing the Glover role, why can't you score 35, 40, 50 points a game? And you do that, that makes it easy on the defense. Because the defense then focuses on, hey, they've got to throw to catch up. Guess what I'm doing? Woohoo! And you're going to get Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter going, meet you at the quarterback. First one last one there buys beer. And you're going to have that for 17 games of the regular season and then into the playoffs. And is that not what we want? I would love to have that.
And Dave, if Mike Zimmer was still coaching the team, and I'm aware that he is not, with the way the Vikings defense was last year, so poor stopping the run, so poor at stopping the pass, it'd be a slam dunk that they'd be picking a defensive player wherever they chose.
No matter what, and they'd reach
no matter what.
Yeah.
But now we don't have that. We have an offensive-minded head coach in Keven O'Connell, and he's looking at the team completely different. And I think that however the Vikings go with their first pick on Thursday, I think that's going to tell us if the moves that the Vikings have done already have told us some things, but I think that's going to tell us how Keven O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, what kind of team they plan to have in 2022. If the Vikings go offense in the first round in this draft, when everybody's saying they've got to take a cornerback, I think that it indicates that they're looking to be attack mode, be like a 1998 Vikings offense, or the greatest show on turf with the St. Louis Rams, that kind of quick strike, score 50, outscore the team offense. I think that'll tell us quite a bit about the kind of team that they plan to have in 2022 and how they want to run things. So it's going to be very interesting night on Thursday, and very interesting Friday and Saturday too, of course. But all Viking fans are really looking forward to seeing what happens on April the 28th, 29th, Thursday.
28th,
anyway,
29th,
5 days.
30th. Yep.
5 days from now, and especially with the first round, what the Vikings are going to do, what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is going to do with the draft pick that he has. And I think, again, as I think more about wide receiver and value, and you want an impact player in the first round pick, no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. But again, like what happened in 1998 with Randy Moss, we didn't need a wide receiver, but we got him, and what an impact he made on that team. I don't think the Vikings are going 15-1 in 1998 if they don't have
Randy Moss. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So maybe Chris Olave is going to be, if you get somebody like him who can have an impact like Justin Jefferson had in 2022 or 2020, and you've also got Justin Jefferson, that's pretty appealing to me. That's all I'm saying, I guess.
Well, do you think Ozzie can step up?
He can. But if we pick a wide receiver in the first round, that's going to potentially eat into his touches, which he may not be happy with. But again, injuries happen too. We know Thielen's been getting nicked up as he gets older. There's really no guarantee. We don't know how many games we're going to get out of him, even though we're counting on him to be a main contributor for all 17 in 2022. But his injury history,
he hasn't made it through the
years,
last 2 years. Yeah, he's always been injured for some of those games. And we know that if he gets a high ankle sprain, which seems probable, he's out for a month type deal.
Yeah. Yep. So even if we and that's another thing about getting the wide receiver is that you've got Thielen's not long for the Vikings, I think, and you have to plan for a transition for him. And you'd have, with picking a potential stud wide receiver in the first round, you've got that transition plan, I think, potentially pretty well mapped out with Jefferson. Then you got Osborne.
If you can't pay him, yes. And if not, you still have the 3 deep, or at least it moves to the 2 deep. Drew had posted he loves the Ozzie graphic. Drew, when I put this up there, I figured you would like it. So it's one of the reasons I did. CY is talking about Debo with the possibility of soft tissue injuries. Issue. I don't know. There's rumors that he'll come to the Vikings. I don't see it. I don't see us paying him that much. So, hey, it happens. And I think Debo was so prolific because he was used both as a running back and a wide receiver. He wants to be paid as a wide receiver. So that's a totally different story. Whoever gets him, the Jets, whomever, I expect the Debo thing to be resolved as a draft day trade. And we may see more draft day trades as we get teams on the clock and we hear so-and-so's trading to such and such, and instead of trading down or up or so many picks, they go, we've traded Debo, San Francisco's traded Debo Samuels to whomever, Houston Texans for their pick, blah, 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 blah. So we'll have fun watching that together and commenting as that goes live Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
And I am not advocating that the Vikings take a wide receiver in the first round, but I'm not. I don't think it's as far as fetched as I thought it was a month ago, for sure. And it makes a lot of sense when you start thinking about it, and for the reasons that we've discussed. But again, it's going to be an interesting evening, very interesting evening.
And like I said before, on day 3, to close out Climbing the Pockets broadcast, the whatever it is, 50 plus hours, Darren will join me and we'll close that out, and a couple other fine individuals from Climbing the Pocket, and we'll recap everything, because as of now we don't have a 7th round pick, if I remember correctly. So I could be wrong. I have been drinking beer and I'm old. So
we don't have a 4th. We know that.
But it comes down to these 2 fine gentlemen.
Where'd you get that photo of Kwesi? he looks kind of lit up there.
That was down at the GM's.
Was that at the Wolves game?
Or whatever. No, it was the GM conference. But they both do.
Those are guys,
smoking doobies.
Yeah, those are the guys, though.
And how they want to take it. It's going to be interesting. It's a big question mark to all of us. Under the Zim Spielman, we knew exactly where they were going. We'd be drafting a corner even if it was a 30-year-old corner taking, way ahead of time, we'd be drafting a corner. We don't know this time, so it should be interesting. But
and the analytics background of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, I don't know, but if you have looked at Football Outsiders, you know that when they do their DVOA metrics, team like the offense is more valuable than a good offense is more valuable than a good defense, and that elevates your rankings, right? So I think that it's if Kwesi Adofo-Mensah takes some of that, he may look at offensive player being more valuable than a defensive player, 7 times out of 10, depending on who it is, and that could influence who he's selecting at certain times in the draft.
Well, and Thomas just asked, if Williams drops to 12, do you select him? You've definitely got to think about it. And we did talk about, do we take a wide receiver at 12, especially if, Stingley, and we know Sauce Gardner is going to be gone. And if Hamilton's gone, there's anybody else on defense seems to be a reach at 12. So we'll find out.
I like Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. I'll tell you that. But
well, that would be we haven't discussed the edges in a long time, but that's another possible. Like I say, take Hamilton because he's a unicorn. If they went edge, obviously we don't technically need an edge because we've got Darren Smith and Daniil Hunter, but it would be nice to have one, especially knowing that the following year, contracts are going to be a stickler, and whether you'd want one. So it's always good to have, and it's always good to have. And in this defense, edge is the key. Edge is the primary point of success or failure because the edge has to keep contained. They have to do their job. Without that, this defense fails. It's not the Zimmer defense where the corners were that primary focus. In the Donatel defense, it's the edges that are most important, and we'll go from there. So it's going to be. We won't find out till Thursday. It's a surprise for everybody. And talking with good friend of the show and founder of one of the founders of Climbing the Pocket, Jordan Reed, now of ESPN.
Read Jordan stuff all the time.
Yep. He's saying this draft is going to be interesting because all the teams aren't sure how to go. This is a weird draft. It's, you don't have the top quarterbacks, going 1, 2, 3, whatever. It's going to be different. And who's going to go where and past the COVID, and you've got guys that are older seniors that are coming in and all this. And when it comes to age, Kwesi also goes for the young. So if you've got anybody that's 24, 25, his history is, if he follows always how he's been, he's going for the 22, 23-year-olds. So you can throw out the old guys. He does look at analytics. That's why I think Duffy is not going to be on the list because of his, short arms and the whole works. And that only works at 1% of the time. I think he's going to go with a higher percentage. But we don't know. We absolutely don't know until we find out end of this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And we invite you to watch us. And bounce between everybody. Have us on your TV. Have Drew and Ted on your computer, right? Have Score North.
Somebody else on your smartphone. Device,
whatever it is. But have all of us up there watching, because I guarantee you'll get better coverage than you get from ESPN or NFL Network when it comes to Vikings interests.
You can take that to the bank.
And like I said before, Climbing the Pocket is going all 3 days. Sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing. Our live event is on day 2, the 29th at the brewery, but we will be live all 3 days of this draft. Any last words, Darren?
There was just some comments in that I didn't want to let go unmentioned, but I saw Jordan Davis being brought up a couple of times. Would we consider Jordan Davis at 12? Because it's possible that he could be there at 12. I've never been a big fan of picking a big bellied run stuffer, even if they run a 4.5 and they're 360 pounds that early. But that's just me. The Vikings run defense has been very, very poor the past 2 years, and Jordan Davis potentially pitiful. Pitiful. Jordan Davis could potentially solve that and do it for a long time. But I wouldn't be, I don't know. I wouldn't be jazzed about that, but I could live with it considering the potential he has. And the other thing somebody mentioned about hearing rumblings about the Chiefs trading with the Vikings. The Chiefs have a couple of picks very late in the first round, and whether that would be, you would consider that. If the deal is right, yeah, sure. I would want the Vikings to get something else besides those ones. I'd want them to get something in later on in the draft, and get back that 4th as well if we can, and maybe something else sweet. But I'm all for trading back if the deal is right, and you can still get good players at late in the first round too. You see it all the time. So.
Well, and
I don't know.
Hopefully Kwesi, with his analytic background and his optimizing value philosophy, finds those guys at all levels, every single round. I would love for him to do that, because that didn't happen before. Before, the philosophy was quantity and hoping one hits, and he'd occasionally have hits. But I want to nail as many as possible, because they need to. And if he sets the standard, you remember 2015 was Rick Spielman's golden draft. He had 3 all-pro starters out of that one. You get that is just fantastic. And he lived off that all the way until he got fired. I'm curious if Kwesi's approach, if he can generate that and then do it on a regular basis, we're golden. It's we'll find out. But as of right now, it's an unknown. So drink your beer, have a good time, and anticipate what's going to happen on Sunday or on Thursday.
It's going to be exciting. One way or the other. And some people are going to be outraged by what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah does, and some people are going to love it. I just always say, does it make sense? And go from there. Even picks that don't work out, and it happens. If the pick made sense at the time, it's only hindsight 2020 stuff that makes you kind of crap on the move later on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, interesting times. Been saying it here for about 10 minutes now. Can't wait for Thursday to get here and to see who the Vikings pick. Trade down, trade up, stay at 12. It's all in play. And the beginning of the Kwesi Adofo era will really kick off with the draft, because I don't know, free agency is one thing, but the draft is really, I feel, where GM kind of really they earn their stripes, because that's where
opportunity to shine,
getting young cheap talent, and hopefully getting lots of it.
What do we say?
We say Skol Vikings!
Skol Vikings! Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.